Imagine you were zoning out for a really long time. Long enough to the point that if someone asked if you were okay, you could say you were meditating and they would nod their head and be like, oh, right, sorry, my bad. In the middle of zoning out, you think to yourself, didn't you have to meet someone 20 minutes ago? You have that sinking feeling of urgency and panic in your chest and your mind starts racing. If you have that feeling right now, then you're welcome to stop the video and add it to your watch later playlist so that way you could actually meet up with that person that you're late to. If I didn't remind you of a pressing matter and you still want to be helped, then this video is just for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about what the sense of urgency does to you physically and how it messes with you mentally. When you have that sense of urgency, there are a few things that happen to you physically. Your blood pressure rises, your heart rate elevates, and the blood in your body shifts away from your brain and more towards your skeletal muscles, leading to more reflexive rather than thought-out actions. This reflex is called fight or flight. Fight meaning you take the problem head on, and flight meaning you run away from it. Because blood is flowing away from your brain, specifically your frontal cortex, your decision-making and thinking takes a hit. If something jumps out at you, you aren't going to go, this creature seems slightly larger than I, so it may be in my best interest to run away. Although, I have been lifting weights more, so I might want to press my luck. Nah, you're either swinging for the fences or sprinting away without a second thought. You've heard stories about mothers lifting cars so they could save their child from a car wreck, but you don't really think there would be any cool stories of running away. Introducing Eemo Koivunen. He is Finnish, and I butchered that name, but I don't care. This Finnish man fought in World War II as a member of a cross-country ski patrol. They had been skiing for days at this point, and the squad was involved in a kerfuffle with Soviet troops. Once again, Eemo is from Finland. To be completely honest, I never thought Finland had an army. I get all countries have armies, but Finland seems like one of those really happy countries that Facebook brings up just to say your country sucks. I never thought they'd need an army, so when they wound up fighting the Soviet freaking Union, I could picture what the Vegas betting line would look like. The Finnish squadron starts fleeing on skis, but Eemo gets separated. I guess in the Finnish military academy, they don't encourage no man left behind. Their policy must be something like, if they're almost finished, we don't care if they're Finnish. Now all alone in the wilderness, Eemo is gassed. He has no idea where he was just fleeing from the Soviets, and he has no food. The only thing Eemo had was his whole squadron's medicine rations. It's fight or flight, and Eemo does what he thinks is best in this situation. He takes the medicine so he could fly. Now, the sentence takes the medicine is technically correct, but doesn't really reflect the severity of what he did. Take some medicine is a thing your mom would say if you don't feel well. Take some Tums if you have a tummy ache. Wait a good hour before swimming so you don't get a cramp. Eemo, probably not thinking clearly, didn't decide to take the serving size of 1 to 2 tablets and instead decided to take all 30 of the tablets at once. The story says that his hands were too cold to pick apart, like a single tablet from the capsule, but it's hard not to eat a single tablet from your palm. That's like sucking down an entire candy tray full of Skittles, even though it's doable just to have one. Oh, a container of heavy medicine. Whoopsie daisy, I ate them all. I'm such a klutz. I mentioned heavy medicine because, at the time it was technically medicine. These tablets were a Pervitin, known today as methamphetamine, or crank, if you insist. Eemo just took well over 15 times the recommended dosage of meth. There is currently no such thing as a recommended dosage of meth. Take some meth if you have a tummy ache and wait a good hour before swimming so you don't cramp. This wilderness is going to look spotless with the amount of cleaning he's going to get done. Unsurprisingly, Eemo blacks out from a meth overdose and finds himself elsewhere in the forest. Over the course of a week, he eats a well-edged diet of a single raw bird and some tree nuts in order to not starve to death. He also gets hit with a landmine, by the way, so if the meth started wearing off by any chance, the fight-or-flight reflex definitely kicked in at this point. 250 miles later, he finally finds civilization, and they run some tests on him immediately because, the dude OD'd on meth and hit a landmine. It doesn't take a genius to think, maybe this guy can cut to the front of the ER line. After all, he is more concerned about everything walking by him rather than the fact he is profusely bleeding. His resting heart rate was double what a normal heart rate should be, and he weighed about 94 pounds after this whole ordeal. It'd be amazing if he lost 94 pounds, but this guy weighed 94 pounds. That's the kind of weight loss that'll make you a Subway spokesperson. They hired a pedophile, so why not step their game up and hire a tweaked out, anxious meth head? Speaking of anxious, let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety is the mind and body's reaction to stressful, dangerous, or unfamiliar situations. It's the sense of uneasiness or dread you feel before a significant event. If you've ever had to prepare a speech or a presentation, I'm assuming you would be a little anxious. The fear of public speaking is the most common phobia after all. They say to imagine the audience naked, but that's a strategy devised by someone who loves watching awkward presentations. Hey, if you're really nervous, might as well pop a massive boner while you're presenting about grapes. To prevent anxiety before a speech, you should prepare your slides early, practice presenting to your peers, and get a good night's sleep. My favorite quote ever is, if you're walking on ice, you might as well dance. And it especially applies to presenting. If you don't think any of that really helped you, then remember, you will always be better than Vice President Andrew Johnson. Johnson, the Vice President to Abraham Lincoln, was never much of a public speaker, so he had the brilliant idea to get into politics. The night before his inauguration speech, he had a bout of typhoid fever. I don't have to do any research to know that a fever is bad, but when you shoehorn in the fact it was typhoid fever, I feel like that would be much worse. If you are Andrew Johnson, you should be eating right now and getting a full night of sleep. Well, Mr. Johnson instead spent the night drinking and sweating like there was no tomorrow, similar to a shit-faced raver who had work the next day. Johnson woke up, hung over to the gills and still sweating like a madman, asked himself, why the fuck did I stop drinking? And he went right back to it. Some people decide to have a mimosa or two for brunch, but Johnson decided to slam 3 tumblers of whiskey at the crack of dawn. Attending his own speech intoxicated, Johnson tried to remember my favorite quote, and thought, if you can't dance, you might as well rant, and decided to ramble on for about 80-90 minutes. His friends tried to pull him off stage and encourage him to shorten his phrases, while President Abraham Lincoln watched on and witnessed this horrific horse carriage crash that was happening right before his eyes. Johnson was too drunk to swear in the senators, and his colleagues did it instead. Good thing Andrew Johnson never did anything outside of being a Oh, Lincoln got shot, and then Johnson became the president. Well, this is going to be bad. Johnson's term consisted of more awful speeches and vitriol, but they were arguably better than his vice president inauguration, so I guess in the end, practice does indeed make perfect. So if you can't run away and you can't fight, then what happens? There is an argument that the buildup of emotions can lead to arousal, according to the paper Some Evidence for a Heightened Sexual Attraction Under Conditions of High Anxiety, also lovingly known by my good friend as the Sexy Bridge Study. Introducing today's contestants on the dating game. Bridge number 1 is a sturdy bridge that you can introduce to your parents and they love it for its security. Overlooking a lovely river, bridge number 1 has the looks department on lock. Bridge number 1 is also great with kids. Now, introducing bridge number 2. Known for the death-defying heights it'll go to, bridge number 2 is the bad boy for all bridges. Due to its constant wobbling and low handrails, bridge number 2 is the kind of bridge that'll make Indiana Jones say, "This is too much for me to handle. I'm out." It may be the scariest option, but it sure as hell makes up for it in the bedroom. Ooh. And finally, we have a hot woman. This woman is different from the other bridges in that she is a literal human woman. Her hobbies involve distributing surveys and talking to passerby men. Somebody get a fire extinguisher, cause she is smoking. Now, let's watch our contestants mingle. So, like I mentioned, there is an attractive woman handing out surveys on 2 different bridges to male pedestrians. The survey contained questions like, what do you think of the bridge, rate the view on a scale of 1 to 5, and describe a short story in a small paragraph. After the male subjects completed the survey, the woman wrote her name and number down and then flirtatiously said, "Feel free to call me and I'll talk to you whenever I have the time." The subjects' stories were then evaluated how sexual they were and whether or not they actually called the surveyor at the conclusion of the survey. By the way, the same test was conducted with a male surveyor to act as a control group. The experiment's results strongly indicated that the males were more sexual on the experimental bridge and talking to the women compared to the other scenarios. So, a good piece of advice would be to take someone on an exciting first date to manipulate them into thinking they like you. If you take a date to a haunted house, a horror movie, or skydiving, then both your and their emotions would be fooled into liking each other. Now, there could be some variables to the experiment, like if the female interviewer had like a niche bridge fetish and she just loved being in grave danger, but the study indicates that if you can't run away and you can't fight back, put your hands in your pockets to hide your stiffy. So, what do we learn at the end of the day? We learned that ODing on meth may be a decent idea if you need to live. You shouldn't binge drink if you have typhoid. You shouldn't binge drink again if you have a presentation. And if you want to walk over a bridge with a date, make it a balance beam. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, send it to a friend. They might like it too. Also, be sure to subscribe or follow this channel on Instagram to be notified of future releases.